Hey there, Ryan Black, real estate investor, and in today's crazy real estate story, I want to talk to you a little bit about plumbing woes and, oh boy, the headaches that we had with plumbing on one of our flip properties. You know, a lot of times when people talk about fix and flip or real estate in general, they're like, oh yeah, it's so sexy, it's so great, you just do it and everything's so smooth. Reality check, that you never have a transaction that is perfect. There are always surprises. There are always crazy things that pop up. There are always just unexpected things, okay? You got to be prepared for that. That's something that we're prepared for. We expect the unexpected. So we go into a deal knowing, okay, we've run all our numbers, we know everything, but we always have a pretty substantial hedge or a cushion, an oops fund, because there's going to be other stuff that comes up that we simply can't anticipate beforehand. This was a good example of one of those cases. So what we did is we picked up this property, and it was a fix and flip that we were doing. And it was, we did the inspection, the pre-purchase inspection, everything was great. And we closed on the property, closed in, it was a 10-day buy, paid cash, picked it up. And we were, 3 days in, I think, after we'd closed. And I had run by the property I can't remember, for some reason, to look at something. And I actually had my boys with me, and my 3-year-old and my 8-year-old. And I'm like, okay, guys, Dad's got to look at something. Just play around for a minute. And then we walked into the kitchen, and I kind of looked on the floor, and there was water on the floor, like in the middle of the kitchen. And I thought, maybe my kids were playing with the sink or something and splashed some water on the floor. But it was far away from where the sink was. So I kind of looked around, and then I looked up, and I see that there's a wet spot in the middle of the the ceiling. And then I see it start to drip. Drip, drip. I'm thinking, oh great. We just got this property and we've already got some crazy plumbing problem. So I looked around, and the ceilings were a little bit higher than what I could reach, and so I thought, what am I gonna? Was wondering, is this just a short-term leak? Is it a long-term? What's been going on? And so there was like a broom or something in the corner. I grabbed it, and with the broom handle, kind of poked at the ceiling, and the ceiling collapsed. Right, so this big chunk of drywall comes down, and just water starts gushing out of the ceiling. It's like this waterfall in the middle of the kitchen, and my kids, my boys, like, they come running in. They're like, what's going on? What's going on? And they see it, and they're super excited. They're like, hey, it's raining in the house. And they go over running, and they're like sticking their heads in it. And they're like running around. They're just having a blast. They love it. And I'm thinking, wow, this is crazy. What's going on? And so it was a 2-story house. So we're on the main floor at this point. So I'm thinking, okay, there's something upstairs there was a pipe burst or something upstairs, and so that's why it's going down. So they were just playing in the indoor swimming pool, indoor rain. So I went upstairs and went around. There were 2 bathrooms upstairs, and so I finally traced it down to the master bath. In the toilet of the master bath, don't worry, it was clean water, but it was the toilet that was leaking, and it was not the sewage, but the supply line to the toilet. There was a leak there where it had been overflowing, and so the water was running back down into the wall, along the pipe, into the wall, and then down the wall, across through the floor joists, and filling up the basically in between the floor joists of the second floor, which was the ceiling of the kitchen. That was my dog. Sorry about that. So once we figured out what it was, shut the water off to the toilet, and that was fine. But what had happened, and we didn't realize, is later on, it was a couple weeks later, down in the basement, so another story down, started to notice that the ceiling was sagging. And so not only had it filled up the kitchen ceiling in a certain section, but it had gone down to the basement and actually filled up a good section of the basement ceiling with water. And so basically the drywall just fell all down, and so the rest of it they had to rip it all down and let it dry out. It wasn't wet that long, so there wasn't mold or anything like that. Wasn't a concern. It was fine after they dried it out, but we had to put on new new drywall and redo all the ceiling in there. And so that was, it was an expense, but once again, we have a hedge already set aside for those kind of unexpected expenses. So it wasn't that big a deal. We weren't happy about it, but it was just kind of crazy what happened. And so I wish that were the end of our plumbing woes in that house, but it wasn't. So we got that fixed and, taken care of and everything, both in the kitchen and in the basement. Drywall redone. We let it dry out first, of course, but redid everything. We were good to go. So then, when we get a little further on and we're done with the property, and then once we're done, we have the home inspection. What? YouTube?
Yeah.
I'm recording a video for YouTube.
No?
One moment. The upside of being able to work from home is you get to hang out with your kids all day. So I love being an investor. It's a lot of fun. Back to my story. So we'd finished the property, and then once we'd finished it, then the buyer came, put it under contract. They did their inspection, and for some reason, when they did the inspection, they noticed that one of the shutoff valves under the sink in the kitchen hadn't been, it was leaking or something. And we told the plumber to change them. They were supposed to change them when we put in the new sink, but obviously they didn't. And so we said, oh yeah, sure, we'll get that taken care of. So we had a plumber come in and swap out those valves. The problem is when they swapped out those shutoff valves, they shook the pipes enough that they actually cracked the drain pipe, the drain line. So it was like a 3-inch, no, it was a 4-inch, a 4-inch ABS that was going down behind it was kind of the main stack that went from upstairs all the way down the kitchen and then down to the basement that was in the wall. And so because of that, there started to be leaking on the basement to where in the corner, it was weird because it was right in this one corner. It hadn't rained, hadn't snowed. There was no moisture outside and there were no water lines nearby. It was just the drain line and there was moisture in the corner of the carpet. And so we couldn't figure it out. There was this line was, of course, we're all done by now, entirely done. The project we're like ready to sell, ready to close in like 2 weeks or less. It was like, we don't want anything to break at this point. And so I punched a little hole. There was, there's the main drain line, and then there was a soffit that was built around it because it was in the basement. So there was a little soffit around it. And so I punched a little hole and then put my scope in. So we have a little, it's cool. It's like a little video scope. It connects to your cell phone. So I stuck my scope in and looked around inside the soffit to see, where's the water coming from. And anyways, we just, I couldn't find it. I couldn't find the problem. So we actually had to have another plumber come back, cut open the whole soffit, and then go in and start diagnosing. And he found out that from that movement, the pipe had cracked way up, like right in between the main floor and the basement. And so he had to cut everything out, put in a whole new drain line in that whole section, and just destroyed. Remember, we had redone drywall, paint, like everything was brand new. And now I've got this big section of wall in the basement that was just destroyed. Big section of the main drain line that's all busted. And so that was, and we were up against the wire because we had to close. Like they were wanting to come do their final inspection, and they knew that we had to make that repair. We let them know, hey, look, there's been a little issue we got to take care of. And so like mad, we're, replacing that. The plumber got it taken care of. He confirmed everything's good. There's no more leaks. So that was good. Then I had to, find somebody to come and do a drywall patch and get that in fast and patch that. And then we had to repaint it and, redo the millwork on the baseboard around the soffit because it had been broken off. And then clean everything up real fast. So sometimes, we try to schedule everything out when we're in a project to where just kind of goes smooth. We stick to schedule and everything, but you got to have flexibility because sometimes, like in the case with this, you got a couple random plumbing issues that come in and totally throw you for a loop. And at the time, we were still kind of laughing because we just, You just laugh with it, and you got to realize it's fun. But it definitely was. There was a little bit of stress there, and when all was said and done, we breathed a big sigh of relief to be over and be done with the project. Because man, some properties it seems like they're cursed. It's like, okay, nothing else break. We got it all done. Let's go. Next project, and that was one of them.